Hello, welcome to the video, welcome to the channel. My name is Will, and in this particular video, what I want to go through is the topic of automating Telegram posts, scheduling and pushing posts onto Telegram via automation using bots. And how we can achieve this is through programming. There are two flavors of this. You can go the Python route, or you can go the .NET route. I'm going to be using .NET C Sharp, and I'm going to be running through how to create a system whereby you can automate Telegram bots. And there's going to be a slightly more advanced section, probably going to be a different video, whereby I'm going to speak about more to do with fleshing out a user interface that allows you, that gives you the tools to actually design custom chat flow for your Telegram bots, and some other features that we're going to be touching on, adding payments, how to upload media. So this is going to be the Managing Automation series, and I hope you enjoy. So without much further ado, let's get straight into the video. Okay guys, so I'm back and I've fired up the project. I've already made an application which is going to cover the some of the topics that we'll be touching on in this particular video. And this is the Universal Windows platform that we're looking at. And I would recommend, if you want to follow along with this video, that you also opt to follow along with the UWP platform, Universal Windows platform. Only because, you know, it will keep things as simple as possible. You'll be looking at the same controls that I'm using for the XAML. But if you do want to use Win32, feel free. The API is more or less the same across the board if you are programming in Win32 or using UWP. Some things to note, the API is changing. I don't know if it's already rolled out to the latest version of the API. I'm already getting messages on IntelliSense that the code base, there are certain classes that will be obsolete or are obsolete. However, they do still work. So as of the recording of this video, you should still be able to get value out of this video to understand the way that I am structuring the system. But syntactically, it may change in the future, as you know, many different kinds of libraries and APIs change over time anyway. So that's just something to note. The project is just about loading now. My computer's a little bit slow actually, so it's taking a little bit longer than maybe some other machines. But anyway, as soon as that's loaded, we'll get straight into the user interface. So what we're going to be doing is firstly touching on a conducive UI that will allow us as the developers to enable users to write custom messages, take that message and pass it onto Telegram. And we need a user interface that is conducive to that end, because at the end of the day, people, maybe yourself or maybe a customer, whatever the context or the realms of you opting to create an automated system is, you need to create, just as importantly, a decent user interface that will allow the input of data, you know, perhaps monitoring and feedback of information. So these things are quite important. And in fact, when I, just as a little anecdote, when I tend to write software, I tend to write with the user interface, or I design the user interface first, and then I go straight into the back end. Just a little thing I do. That's another video for another day. But anyway, the application is loaded. One thing to quickly note, this is responsively designed, and it's another video in and of itself, how to create responsive UWP XAML. I'll probably make a video on that because I think it's really important that more UWP developers, if they don't know already how to really use XAML to a higher level of potential, then perhaps it's being used or considered. And it's just simple things. So anyway, I can even go full screen, and everything more or less keeps its form, which is really handy. We're gonna go ahead and window this. So let's see, I am going to set a date. That's today's date. Set a time, so I want to allocate the post 2 minutes from now, more or less, so that's 37 past 11. I'm gonna write a message. Hello world. Surprising. And now I need the bot token, so I'm gonna quickly go and grab that. And to input the bot token, I've opted for a password box control. That way, it just adds a layer of protection in terms of people seeing what you're doing, or not being able to see thereof. Rather, better said, unless you expose the field here. I'm not going to do that. What's the time? 36 past. I'm gonna just quickly change this to 38 just to give me some more time because Notepad took a while to load. So I'm gonna just check everything. So now that I've written my message here, there's an option to parse the message via add new post to the collection of posts. We can go ahead and monitor hello world scheduled for 38 minutes past 11. And that's about it. Now we can push the post to the server. So there's probably 100 different ways you can improve this user interface. But again, it's just to really to demonstrate the functionality, more or less. So I'm going to go ahead and open my Telegram. And I don't have my taskbar there, so I'm going to do it off screen. I'm just going to have a look at the time. Okay, so we have just above 5 seconds. Whoops, speak to the bot. Excellent, just made it. So what I just did there is that I had to speak to the bot to initiate conversation, and that way the bot will have all the information, the data it needs to know this user is speaking to the bot, and then everything else can be parsed. So as you can see on the screen, really hard to see. I do appreciate that, but over here, hello world, just as we programmed, has been pushed at a time of about 11:38, more or less that time as scheduled. Hello world, and it's there. So this is the basic concept. I'm going to go ahead and close this. And we're going to go through how this is achieved. Yeah, so now I'll just wait for the debugging session is ended. So first things first, when you are programming, empty Win32, say WPF or UWP project, you usually have a main page or a main window class. I opted to put most of the networking functionality in a separate class called TG Connect, as you can see up here. Now the thing is, there are some folders here that says assets, models, views. I was experimenting with MVVM to see if I could optimize some of the data access, but don't worry, we're not going through MVVM, and it's not something I've well and truly implemented into this application. So, excuse me, take a quick swig of coffee. All right, anyway, so so now, first things first, what you want to do, and just as one more piece of housekeeping, this is sort of a lower intermediate and up tutorial. That's the word I was looking for. So I'm going to glean over a lot of different things, the basics and fundamentals in a sense, because it's not really a tutorial regarding coding basics. It's going to be more of the fundamentals of this particular context of setting up automation using Telegram bots. So do forgive me if I gloss over a few terms or a few concepts. There's many good videos that can go over the basics of coding, but if you do have a sound grasp of coding at whatever level, feel free to continue. It's all good. But even if you're higher level or just starting out, this will hopefully benefit you with some value through this video in any sense, maybe as a reference. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in. Once you go to the NuGet package store and you download the Telegram bots package, I'm going to leave a link in the description. You can make a reference to that namespace via the using keyword at the top. I have using telegram.bot. So first things you want to do, what I opted to do is in the constructor, let's see. Yes, so I'm calling a function called establish TGBot connection. So every time that you construct this class, what it does, one of the first main things it does Let's call this function establish tgbot connection, and it passes a token, and this token is obtained through the constructor, and the constructor obtains it through the field, the password box you saw earlier, which has the bot token. Of course, it's better to make a protected field exposed by public property, all that kind of stuff. But obviously, for the sake and purposes of this video, this is actually drawing the token straight from the field, the password box field. So let's go ahead and see what this does. Establish tgbot connection method. Okay, so establish tgbot connection. We have in this function system.net http client. So we are constructing a http client, as you can see here, and we're not passing any overloads in this particular case. Now, this bot object is a reference to this global Telegram bot client. So I've declared Telegram bot client at the top, and I've named it bot. And so bot is assigned a new Telegram bot client. So I'm just constructing the class, and then I pass as the overload the bot token and the HTTP client that we created here. And then what I'm doing, I actually call another method that I create called onMessageReceived. So if we go to onMessageReceived, what we do is that global bot, I then call its start receiving function, so it can start receiving updates. And then I also call onMessage, or rather I set up the onMessage event. And to do that, you do bot.onMessage plus equals, and then the method of choice that event is hooked to. In this case, I have a method called bot_onMessage, and when you look at bot_onMessage, it's an asynchronous function. You want to make sure it's an async function, and it passes and it also accepts, or rather, it what's the word I'm looking for? It needs as an overload. I'm so sorry for that. It needs as an overload an object sender and a Telegram bot args message event args pass into its constructor. This is quite important, and so much so that I actually grab this message event args, which is E, and I put it in global scope, because what this does is that we're going to need this for server to user monogamy, and that's something we're going to touch on in either this video later or the next video. So what I do here in this bot on message is that I put into global scope the sender information. I put into global scope the message event args information, and I have a flag here called init args, and that's assigned false. So I'm just going to quickly look at my notes. Yeah, so this is setting up Telegram events / linking bot tokens, because we're going through that as well. Now, here's where we're going to start looking a little bit at pushing messages. Yeah, so the first things first, I'm just looking at my notes. So pushing messages to subscribe chats. Simple enough. I'm going to gloss over this for now. It's quite important, but I will come back to it because it's going to be necessary. But in order to pass messages onto Telegram, as you saw the hello world message, all you have to do when this bot_onMessage has been called, and remember it's hooked to this event, the bot.onMessage event, what happens? Yes, then we have access, then we are in good standing rather to call this await bot.send text message async, and this function is what actually sends the message. And as you can see, another message, a custom message, is sent in this particular instance. So I do a check to see if that global message event args, which actually is a class that holds members pertaining to the chat between the bot and the user. If the message sent was test, so if I had written test in capital letters in my chat with the bot, then this would have executed these lines of code. And what this one does is sends a message called test server command obtained, and then you fill out the other overloads. Most of them are just nullified, false, and default, but they're quite easy to figure out once you look at the IntelliSense, because everything is more or less described, as you can kind of make out there. I know it's really hard to see. I apologize for that. Should probably zoom in just a little bit more, actually. And then I induce a delay just to help prevent double posting, because I had some issues with that. Can't really see now. Okay, and that kind of covers sending messages. So at least receiving the messages and then responding to the messages received. We have to hook a method to the event bot.onMessage. And here we have a method called bot_onMessage. And so every time a message is received, this fires. And when this fires, then you have the option to send a message, as you can see here. Or you can at least parse the information the message has been received by the Telegram bot. So now, I said I would gloss over this. I think now is a good time to go over it. We're going to go over, goodness me, how would I say? Yeah, sort of like monogamy between the server and the user. So basically, what do I mean by this? We want a situation where, or you may want a situation, better said, if you have one server, you're programming one server, so one instance of this application, but you are anticipating communicating with, say, 10, dozens, or many different users, you probably don't want every user, if it was a situation where they were receiving custom information or customized tailored directions from the bot for for a different number of contacts, you don't want user A receiving information that's tailored for user B. So how do we deal with this? Well, we're not going to follow any kind of official protocol as such, but we're going to use simple C# logic in order to filter what users are communicating with the server and then sending appropriate messages to those respective users. So what I do is this global message event args over here, which this message event args, which I save in global scope as message event args here, public property to access the message event args for the event of the updated chat. I go ahead and assign it the value of this method called check session, which for some reason I left in the main page, which kind of doesn't make sense. It probably would have been better if I left this in this TG Connect class. But anyway, here it is. So check session, let's have a look. I should probably look at the overloads, but we can look at it now. Let's let my computer settle, it's being a bit strange. So this check session, it accepts as an overload a TG Connect called session, object sender, and it doesn't look like I'm using these ones actually. Yeah, so the main thing, so I'm not actually using this in the logic, it seems. So the main thing you want to pass is the message event args. This is what's going to be evaluated. Now, what I did here is I have a list of longs called chat ID list, as you can see in global scope here. Holds all the chat IDs interacting with the server. So in as much as there are any number of elements in these lists, so dot count, it counts how many elements are in the list, I'm going to do a for loop. And what I do here is I say if the chat ID index at index 2, starting at 0 index loop within the for loop, as you can see here, up to the count of the chat ID list. If I have stored chat ID, which is identical to the E, so the message event args dot message dot chat dot ID, which is a member of the message event args class, which is a long, stored as a long. It's a unique identifier for this chat, as I'm reading out from the IntelliSense. Then what I do is I return that message event args list, or rather, I have another list of message event args. Now this is where I kind of messed up a little bit, because I don't need to really have a list of chat IDs if I have a list of message event args. And the message of event args list, I'll just show you here. As the name implies, it stores a list of message event args. Very surprising. So I know that's a little bit of a oversight on my part, but it's okay in a sense. It still kind of works, so we'll gloss over that for now. So message event args list, I'm returning the matched. So basically, if this returns, it means there was a match between the current chat ID evaluated and a chat ID that's stored. But by default, you're not gonna get a chat ID in the list because it hasn't been populated yet. So that's where this won't go through, and it will fall through to this piece of logic here, which signifies a new incoming user chat ID. Store and return the chat ID to send the reply. So what I do is I say this message event args list dot add the new message event args, which is stored as e, and then I simply return. So I return the function. So it returns the list, the element in the list, which is the last element in the list. That's why I have to use count minus one because it's zero index. So if I have 10, it will be indexed at 9. So 0 to 9 inclusive, 0 index. Otherwise, I just return the first element in the list. This probably won't usually happen, and I need to just kind of check that that's the correct functionality, but this is what we're really concerned with here. So once this is returned, we can now make sense that this message event args, what this is being assigned the current chat ID, or not chat ID, but the current message event args in focus, which also implicitly has the current chat ID in focus. And once you have that particular chat ID in focus, then you can go ahead to evaluate you can evaluate your chat as needed. It's as simple as that, really. Because what this allows you for, and I'm going to demonstrate it as well again, is of the monogamy. One is always the user that is speaking to the bot. It's always that user that's being evaluated at one time with regards to this class, because e.message, remember, is being passed from the event call, where it's getting the current user that is interacting with the bot. And so there's, even if you have n number of chat IDs or n number of message event args stored of different chat sessions, you're always going to be evaluating one particular e.message.chat.id, which is the chat that has been invoked, i.e. the chat that is speaking to the bot, and that's going to be evaluated against the list of all the other chats. So that's how we create that's the logic and the idea behind the monogamy, but creating a monogamy rather, between the server and respective Telegram users.